Sometimes I wonder that Tallahassee is not just far away from most of Florida in terms of physical distance. It's also far away from the reality most of Floridians face every day. While Floridians need investment in quality public services such as education, healthcare, affordable housing, assisting families in need, to name some of the few, the bills that are moving and being prioritized are the reverse of what should be the priority. Back in February, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office announced the arrest of 4 teens, 2 13-year-old boys, a 15-year-old boy, and a 16-year-old boy on burglary charges from the January robbery of a Cedar Hills gun store. You heard me right. These are teenage children. These are our future. Putting our future in jails is a reactionary measure, which is not addressing the real problem. We need to invest in our children, period. Our historical lack of investment in education, technology, and mental health is taking a toll on our communities. So instead of a typical approach of expanding the jails, let us talk about opening our minds to new possibilities. I have filed House Bill 3169 that would allocate $1 million to the project Coding in Color, an effort by 100 Black men of Jacksonville to provide instruction on computer coding to kids with an interest in math, science, and art. Another appropriations effort, HB 3187, would put over $500,000 in state funds toward the group Crumping for Success. This bill aims at giving them opportunities to be financially stable, to help them provide for their families, to provide them with economic self-sufficiency, and to teach them to become entrepreneurs instead of reverting to a life of crime. Governor DeSantis should prioritize these bills instead of HB 1, which is a censorship and oppression bill, which is clearly an attack on our constitutional freedoms, our attack on Black lives, and our attack on investment within our communities. This is a choice we have to make during this 2021 legislative session. And this is Angie's Angle. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Angie's Angle. I am here with a fellow activist, organizer, awesome Black woman, and my fellow legislator. Please welcome the great Representative Michele Rayner-Goolsby.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on Angie's Angle. This is very cool. This is very cool.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, we're just gonna have a real conversation.
Please, Jesus.
And so on Angie's Angle, we talk about what's been going on during the week as it relates to the legislative session. And so with that, I know recently you came out of a committee. You attempted to file some amendments that would have been really beneficial to the Black community especially. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the bill was the THC cap bill. So I'm definitely not in support of that bill. But if it was going to pass the committee and potentially get to the floor, let's see, the amendment process is a way that we can make sometimes a bad bill a little bit better, right? There is an enumerated list of qualifying medical conditions that folks can seek, medical marijuana treatment for. So I asked that sickle cell be listed as one of the enumerated qualifying medical conditions. One, we know that sickle cell anemia and sickle cell disease, it devastates the Black community. It is a debilitating disease. It is a chronic disease, and it is something that should be enumerated. And once again, it opens up the access conversation, the accessibility of medical marijuana, especially to our community. So I introduced that amendment, and it was called Unfriendly.
Unfriendly? Why was it called unfriendly? And who called it unfriendly? Please break it down.
The bill sponsor called it unfriendly.
Wow.
And so this particular amendment does not change the substance of the bill. It doesn't change anything regarding the purpose or the intent behind this bill. It just literally adds this medical condition as a qualifying medical condition. And so, I went in debate and I said that I was, blown away, and I was low key offended, exactly what I said, because I didn't understand why it wasn't unreasonable. And I brought up the point that this further, highlights the inequity between access to marijuana in the Black community. I think that, we know that folks are now being able to farm marijuana. They're being able to do all these things with marijuana, have dispensaries, but this for that same drug that has many folks of our people in federal prison and in state prison. Mm-hmm. And once again, it's driving home the inequity of access. And so I did speak to the bill sponsor afterwards, and he said, I'm going to have to agree to disagree with you. It's in the catch-all provision of the bill. And I said, well, the catch-all provision of the bill has a doctor to determine that it's a qualifying disease. Meaning you could go to a doctor and say, yes, I think it's a qualifying disease. But another person could go to another doctor and say, well, I don't think it's a qualifying disease, instead of having it enumerated. And I brought up the point that I think that it should be enumerated because of the equity. Mm-hmm. And so, it was really disturbing that happened.
Right. And I totally agree and side with you. I know that for folks out there, many of you all in Duval County, we had my friend, Orion Benjamin Reddick, actually died from sickle cell. Yes. And I know I've had conversations with folks in regards to people suffering from that disease, and they stated that oftentimes some emergency doctors feel as though they're faking it when they say that they're, they have a flare up or they're going through. I'm sorry, I don't know the proper terminology, but when they're going through one of their episodes. And so it's very subjective. And I think it is something that definitely needs to be enumerated, as you stated. And that's one of the reasons that I love Rep. Rayner, because she speaks truth to power, and she actually legislates from being a Black woman. And so that's really awesome. So can you tell us some of your bills that you're seeking to get through this legislative session?
Yes. So we have an urban agriculture bill that is up, and we're hoping that it's going to be agenda, please, fingers crossed. And it's a really good bill because it will really benefit local communities, especially communities within the urban core. So part of the bill allows city government to use vacant land within the city limits to be used as community gardens or to be used for agriculture purposes. Also, it allows that if you were to grow a garden that's not just like in your backyard, but maybe you have a piece of property and you want to grow a garden, that it would not be considered a nuisance as well. And then once again, it ties in the food desert piece and the food equity piece that we know that is so prevalent within our communities. And I want to also be very clear with that food deserts just don't happen in Black communities. They happen in white communities. They happen in Latinx communities. This is an issue that's happening throughout Florida. And so we have to be very creative when we're thinking about ways that we're going to give folks access to healthy foods, fresh foods that aren't processed. And then also, when you have these gardens and community, agriculture, spots within the city, you are also adding to the value of the city, adding to the value of neighborhoods. So that's one bill that we have. And we have another bill that I'm super excited about. It is a housing bill. So essentially, it allows cities the discretion to waive the building permit fees if someone is building affordable housing for folks in the community. And it gives them, it's not a mandate, it gives them the discretion, because once again, it's great. We want to talk about the status-quo fund. We want to talk about fully funding it. Okay, then what's going to happen? It was fully funded at the end of session last year, and then the governor was like, yeah, I'm not going to go ahead and do that. So we have to come up with creative ways to ensure that this is actually going to happen. So also, we have a stand your ground, repealer of stand your ground, restoring it back to just regular self-defense. And I have a repealer of the same-sex marriage ban. And so we have some really good bills that I'm very excited about. Hopefully, they will get agenda. Y'all, This is why elections have consequences. This is why they have consequences. Be very mindful who you vote for. And, but we are trying to put forth the people's agenda and do the work for the people.
Which is awesome. And so y'all know we are working on the people's agenda. She was also gracious enough to sign on to our letter to the Department of Revenue demanding that we find out where that money is going as it relates to those tax cuts, how much money is actually missing, because I'm not sure if you all know, but we're facing a $2 billion shortfall here in the state of Florida.
Yep.
And based on an expose by the Orlando Sentinel, upwards to about $500 million could have been taken from, the state could have had, but we gave away tax cuts, and now there are certain groups that are trying to put that into policy and make that like just standing policy, which would be detrimental to public services, which definitely have an impact on Black and brown communities. And so if there's one last thing that you would like to tell the people who are out here watching Angie's Angle, what would that be?
Yeah, listen, I mean, I would just say not to give up hope. I think that this week has been a very interesting week, and it's very easy when you are fighting for the right things to give up hope and to say, oh, like, why am I doing this? And that's regardless of wherever you're at, whether you're elected or not elected, whether you're just volunteering in your community, whether you are mentoring kids or whatever you're doing, that you're adding value to your community. And it does seem hard, but just don't give up hope, and keep going, keep doing, because if we're all doing this collectively, that's where we will see the change that we really want to see. I believe that a real new equitable world is possible. I believe it's not something that I just say to get people riled up, but I believe it, because if I didn't believe it, I wouldn't be here, because none of us have to be here. But I do believe that. So keep, the marathon continues.
The marathon continues. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And it's an honor and a pleasure to work with you.
Same.
Keep me lifted up.
Yes, same.
And so thank you.
Thank you. I
Keep up
appreciate it.
hope, y'all.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
A Florida Policy Institute's recent analysis states, and I quote, "The Florida legislature is considering bills HB 1 and SB 484 that seriously harms freedom of speech in the state and go in the wrong direction for criminal justice reform by adding more felonies and mandatory minimums to our laws." However, one overlooked impact of these potential policies is the high cost to the state's Department of Corrections and local city jail budgets that are already teetering on the brink. As per the statistics presented by the Institute in 2019 and 2020, Florida saw a decline in the rate of incarceration by 17%. But during the same time, the Department of Corrections budget was increased by 7%. This is under current law. If DeSantis' censorship and oppression bill is passed just for 3 arrests, Florida will spend $1.3 million to incarcerate people. This is not our priority. Spending $1.3 million to incarcerate 3 people? That's just absurd. We want to hear from you. What are your priorities? Take the People's Budget Challenge at www.peoplesbudgetflorida.org. Take the challenge.